SSX.
Developed by Electronic Arts Montreal and EA Canada and released in 2012, the game we're going back to today is one where you'll fly off Mount Kilimanjaro and breakdance on a snowboard. In this episode, we're going to revisit the incredible presentation and ripping gameplay. I want to recommend SSX and try to nail down why SSX 2012 was the final game in a series that started all the way back on the original PlayStation. The original SSX, released in year 2000, described itself as an arcade-style racing game with larger-than-life courses, characters, and tricks. In 2012, SSX has carried on that tradition. One of the best things that SSX 2012 has going for it is its presentation, which is packed with confidence and attitude. Once you forgive the game for automatically trying to sign you up to EA emails, you'll be smashed with slick menus, over-the-top cutscenes, bright, bouncy characters, and a belting soundtrack. This game gets going quickly, which I love. The first event, Tearing Downhill, showcases one of SSX's loudest features.
Don't drop the ball, just drop your jaw. We'll drop the jewel, he'll top a fool. Sit and spit wherever.
Everyone knows that an arcade sports game is only as good as its soundtrack. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Jet Set Radio, Forza Horizon, Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX are all classics in that regard. I'm proud to say that SSX 2012 is in the same league as those greats, even more than a decade after its release. I didn't expect to remember so many songs from the soundtrack, but the more than 70 track selection is full of belters from the early 2010s. Nero, Skrillex, DJ Shadow, Flux Pavilion, Digitalism. There's not many duds in this lot. Developers doubled down on the solid soundtrack with smart integration, and the integration is how the soundtrack blends with the gameplay. What you can hear is the music adapting to your downhill run. It fades when you launch off a ramp, scratches like a record when you rotate on a grind, and distorts if you bail off. It sounds gimmicky, but it's never really felt overdone when I was playing. It's a great way to help the music feel like it's moving at your speed and in conjunction with your run. I also love that back in the day, you could have uploaded your own music to the game and it would remix the tracks in the same way that the main soundtrack works. Other components of the presentation fuel the high-octane energy of the game. The whooshing sound effects, the field of view changes, the crazy slopes, the trick counter, the larger-than-life characters, and their over-the-top banter. I have to give a special acknowledgement to the helicopters and their pilots, accompanying you on every run, being able to trick off them, and of course their weirdly intense and stereotypically nationalistic pilots. Wizard, Miss Dragonfly, and Yuri. I'm a big fan of all of them.
Especially Red, one of our other pilots. I can see what he likes about ya. My name's Wizard. Gonna be flying together throughout Patagonia, so get yourself squared away back there and get ready for the time of your life.
So let's talk gameplay. For an arcade game, there's more depth than I expected here. There's a clever input system for grabs and holds. The first flick of the right analog stick will dictate which hand you use for a grab or a trick, and the second flick of the right analog stick dictates where you will grab on the board. Other inputs let you tweak, rotate, and spin. On the ground, you've got nose and tail slides, and a boost which builds up according to your trick meter. Famously for this series, build up your score and you will enter tricky mode, where boost is unlimited and your grabs and aerial moves get crazy. Build on this to get super tricky, where each character has a wild signature move and the music shifts to the SSX theme, that remix of the classic Run DMC song. Other gameplay features include grinding, ghosts, and an awesome rewind system. Progression does well with an XP and credit system to unlock new outfits and gear. A great world tour mode is there where you conquer 9 deadly descents, facing off against stuff like avalanches, trees, and gravity itself. I imagine the multiplayer experience would have been fairly solid based on what I could see of the RiderNet interface and how it links with your friends and leaderboards and has new events coming up. Crossing the different mountain ranges and unlocking new characters is also good fun. Each has their own characteristics, and there is gear which can help differentiate between regions and runs. Ellie has her wingsuit, Alex has her ice picks. I think the difficulty is tuned well. There's forgiveness in the rewind system, although it does cost you points and it is limited on some tracks. The controls are tight, responsive, and the physics are forgiving without being painless. The game hits that easy to learn, hard to master balance. SSX 2012 was well reviewed on release. So for a game that reviewed and sold well, played great, had an awesome soundtrack, and renewed a classic franchise, and released towards the end of the Xbox 360 and PS3 generation, why did it kill the series?
When push comes to shove, it's all down to you.
Unfortunately, I don't think SSX 2012 did anything wrong. I think it was a victim of the gaming landscape changing. Arcade extreme sports games had a narrow appeal at that time, especially compared to AAA open-world action-adventure titles, so developers and publishers shifted their focus. I still think it's a little bit odd that in that big transition to AAA open-world action-adventure games that happened, most extreme sports games and arcade games more generally seem to just fade away for a generation. The only game I can think of for the Xbox One and PS4 generation that was an extreme sports arcade title is Steep. The only similar type of game that survived were arcade motorsport titles like Forza Horizon, Dirt, and Trials.
Right, readouts are looking solid, Elise. Big air.
Fortunately, I think we're in the early stages of a revival of the extreme arcade sports genre. A few years ago, indie games started exploring the space, and there have been titles like Lonely Mountains Downhill, Skatebird, and more resounding successes like Descenders. Major developers and publishers seem to be coming around as well. Beginning with the 2020 remaster of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, there's been a range of good news for fans of the genre. Ubisoft's Riders Republic will be releasing later this year, and Skate 4 has been announced. It's a good time to be getting back into the genre, and it's also a good time to revisit one of the greats. SSX 2012. It gets a recommendation from me. This 2012 game runs smoothly, looks and sounds brilliant. This game absolutely shreds, and you should play it. Thanks for listening. Take care.